destination. Darkness is quite near your feet and sunsets through your ears. And tide is rising, drought is non-existent. Sins are washed away, all the faults that you were facing. Sunset chaser, where's your new location? Searching for a purpose, the truth's making you nervous. And sunlight's waiting, there's a happy ending. Picture perfect skies, does your life have any meaning? Oh, darling, don't you cry no more, as the sun will soon shine 1,000 times. Don't you worry, dear, dark clouds will soon clear for you. Daylight saver till the next adventure. Love is all around, but you're focused on your frowning. Rays are burning, achy luminescence, feeling through the gloom, tense and patient for its blooming. Oh, darling, don't you cry no more, as the sun will soon shine 1,000 times. Don't you worry, dear, dark clouds will soon clear for you.
Sunny sea, there's no point of being me, as the night took my innocence. I'm starting to see there's no mention of happiness. Life I possess, I offer it to you as you banish regret. In my heart, tape bound, I can't hardly speak. Tracks of my tears slipped away. I am weak as I sing this last melody. Set your own rest. Sunny song is my final request.
Oh, darling, don't you cry no more, as the sun will soon shine 1,000 times. Don't you worry, dear, dark clouds will soon clear for you.
Aloha, everyone. Hello, my name is Anderson Lay. I'm the artistic director for the Hawaii International Film Festival. And welcome to our second NAP panel, the New Americans Perspectives NAP, which is presented by the Vilcek Foundation. And this is advertised as a masterclass for the film 7 Days. I don't know if it's a masterclass, but it's going to be more of a, you guys are all masters already, I guess, but to be more of a conversation about the making of this film. And it's very unique in the sense that it's very of its time. It's made during the pandemic. It's about the pandemic basically, and we're going to just talk about that and how it all came together and all the challenges that you all faced when making this film. So before we start, I'm going to just introduce all of our esteemed panelists, starting with Geraldine Viswanathan. Australian actress Geraldine Viswanathan has quickly succeeded in establishing her career in television and film. Viswanathan can currently be seen in the romantic comedy The Broken Heart Gallery, as well as the HBO film Bad Education, which is a fantastic film. Viswanathan also reprises her role alongside Daniel Radcliffe and Steve Buscemi in the upcoming third season of the TBS anthology comedy series Miracle Workers, which is also co-starring Karan. In recent years, Viswanathan starred in the coming-of-age drama Hala, which is on Apple TV, I believe. The Netflix original comedy The Package, that one. The Severed Penis comedy, yes, yep. And the Universal comedy Blockers, which I think was your breakout role, right? Yeah. Viswanathan stars in the feature 7 Days, of course. And welcome, Geraldine.
Thank you.
And then next to Geraldine, we have Roshan Sethi, who, he's like every Asian parent's dream. Yeah. Roshan, born and raised in Canada, is a director, screenwriter, producer, and physician working at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. He began writing as a student at Harvard Medical School and co-created Fox's The Resident while finishing his residency. He co-wrote with Haley Shore a film titled Call Jane with Elizabeth Banks and Sigourney Weaver. 7 Days is his directorial debut. Roshan, welcome. And of course, we have Karan Soni, born and raised in New Delhi, India. He grew up studying theater and continued his education at the University of Southern California. While in school, he landed a lead role in Safety Not Guaranteed. Since that film, he has starred in several other films, including the Deadpool movies, Paul Feig's Ghostbusters, and get my page. And Always Be My Baby, Always Be My Baby, with and Detective Pikachu, among others. On television, he has appeared as a series regular on shows like Betas, Other Space, and Blunt Talk, and more. He currently stars in the series Miracle Workers alongside Daniel Radcliffe and Steve Buscemi and Geraldine, of course. And Sony also directed his first episode of television for the HBO series Room 104. And Sony's also he also co-wrote and stars in 7 Days. So there's definitely a Mark Duplass connection here. So we'll get into that as well. Yeah. So how did the project come together?
So I, like you mentioned, I'm also a physician, and I finished residency in June of 2020. And there was a gap of 3 to 4 months before starting my attending position in November or December. And as it happens, I had nothing to do for that period of time, first of all. But second of all, the industry was more or less shut down. Nothing was in production. And the show that they're both on had been postponed until I think it was a sort of unclear when it would even come back. And everyone was feeling really creatively stagnant and stifled. So we decided that we would make a movie with the time that we had and in a time where it felt impossible to make anything. So we carefully designed it to be makeable within the constraints of the time. So just 2 actors, 1 location, for as little money as possible, since so much money would be required for COVID testing. Then we quickly wrote a script, and I think 5 days. And then because it's so dialogue based, and it was based a little bit on our own love story.
We had nothing to do.
And we sent it to the Duplass brothers, who Karan has known for a very long time because of Safety Not Guaranteed, and who have been mentors really to him. And they agreed to produce and finance it. So we wrote it in July, and it was filmed in September. So just a few months later, we filmed it in 8 days. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's a quick turnaround. Just because it will premiere at the South by Southwest Film Festival, I believe, right? In April.
Tribeca.
I'm sorry, Tribeca.
Yeah, no.
Sorry.
No.
Roy Tribeca, which was only maybe a few 6 or 7 months after you.
Yeah, it was.
Wow. So you came up with the idea for the script. I mean, Karan, like you were co-writing it with Roshan, and you want to star in it. I mean, was there like obviously was it just because you were creatively stagnant, not doing anything? Were you kind of working out kind of, I don't know, I mean, just I would say just mental health issues of just like not being around anyone, or
Yeah, no, definitely. I realized much later, after when I went back into therapy earlier this year, that I was really going through like a version of depression, I think, during that time, because I was just on the hamster wheel of Hollywood for like 11 years, where I was just like going from trying to get a job to doing a job to trying to get the next job to doing the next meeting, the next everything,
just
and then
the hustle.
the hustle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really didn't have, I have a lot of friends and stuff, but we weren't allowed to see anyone. So I literally suddenly had all this time. I was living alone at the time. And so it was just very sort of jarring to be like, will we ever work again? Like, I genuinely was like, I don't see how a set can be socially distanced. And now it feels so normal for productions in COVID, because they figured all these protocols out. But at the time, it felt like our job is so, we can't do it virtually. And it just felt like, how is this ever going to work? And so Roshan really had the idea to be like, let's just like write a script and shoot it like pretty much on our phones or whatever, like in the most scrappy way. And I sort of just laughed it off. And then eventually he's like, no, I'm serious. And so then we just sort of took it step by step. We just wrote the script, and then we found a story that we were like, we really like this, and we'll just try to write it. And then once we finished the script, we really, I think both were like, wait, this is actually good. Like, it would make a good movie. And it suddenly felt like more real, I think, at least for me, I should say. And then we just sent it to Mark Duplass, really like out of sort of just like a random, like, sure, why not? Like, and because it was COVID, he read it sort of right away and jumped on board and was like, this is makeable. Like, we can make this. And then slowly that became shooting it in 8 days and for no money. But we were like, sure, let's do it. So
Would have
it's
been great for
exciting.
the press kit if it was shot in 7 days.
They did
Yeah.
make a joke where initially, on the same call where they told us we had to shoot it in 8 days, we were like mentally like, maybe we can shoot this in 12 shooting days or something, which would still have been the fastest I've ever made any movie.
Yeah.
Like, prior to this, I did one movie in 18 days, which felt like insane. So I couldn't even fathom doing that. And then they were like, no, it's like, we cannot afford more than 8 days. But they did for a second try to be like, what if it's 7 days and one camera and like like
it's just not
we're
worth it
like, no,
for
then
that
we just
job.
can't do it. Yeah, we just can't do it.
I mean, aside from the constraints of the pandemic, but were you inspired by other work? Because it reminds me of, I mean, films like My Dinner with Andre or Tape, or what are some of the kind of like antecedents to the creation of this project?
Yeah, I think the ones you mentioned, and I also think like indie filmmaking has cratered to such a huge extent. It is
Yeah.
really hard to get movies made, especially for first-time filmmakers. And as a result, you actually, in a weird way, have to think smaller than ever before.
Mhm.
And it really becomes about the writing and the acting to a degree that it wasn't, I think, in the past. So we were just looking to make something that we could really pull off.
Yeah.
Which felt very, very daunting then. Doesn't feel as much now, but it felt almost impossible for the entire month leading up to the movie. It honestly just felt like it wasn't actually going to happen.
So, I mean, you talked earlier about basically Miracle Workers is on hiatus. So it was like, I guess you just finished season 2 and the pandemic happened and you didn't know what was going to happen for season 3. And then, so how did you approach Geraldine to get to be on board the project?
Kern texted her.
Yeah, no, we wrote it with her in mind, because we always knew it would sort of be like a two-hander. And we sort of were like, right away, I remember early on, we were like, who would it be? Like, because we were like, maybe we should write to their strengths and think about them. And it was always her name was always first, but we then were like, I don't know if she's going to want to do it, because Geraldine was in New York at the time, isolating there. And it just also seemed crazy. It was August to like fly still and all that stuff. And then we sent it to her and she read it very quickly. And when she said yes, we like just jumped up and down in our apartment. And we're like, oh God, it's real. We have to now somehow figure out how to make this movie.
Geraldine, what was when you first read the script?
It just like clicked with me. Like it just made me emotional at the end, and I just loved it. And the idea of working with these two, especially in the like truly darkest time, it just felt like such a treat and like escape. And it was, I was like, if anyone can pull this off, it's these two.
Mhm.
And they did, and it's still the craziest thing to me. Just like, yeah, shooting in this Airbnb in a heat wave in Palm Springs. But yeah, it was just so obvious that I had to do it.
I mean, at the time, and it was still, there were a lot of unknowns like traveling and whatnot. I mean, were these obviously probably like front center in your mind? Like, should I jump on a plane and go? Like, it's like like
Yeah.
reachable mast.
Yeah, it was like, okay, maybe I'll wear like a beekeeper's suit. Like I need to be covered from head to toe.
Yeah.
But I felt so confident because he's a doctor. So I
Right,
was like,
exactly.
Roshan, what do I do? He sent me a video of how to properly wear a mask
Okay.
and like check that it's fully sealed. And like I wore the shield. And yeah, so really was like, it was a scary
Yeah, I
time to
mean, we're
fly.
still like scrubbing our produce and leaving it out in the garage for 3 days and bringing it back in and
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff, and drawing a line on the table and like transferring to, like, it's all that kind of
Yeah,
things. Yeah.
yeah.
So okay, so you make it to LA or California, and so you shot it in Palm Springs. Why? Yeah.
Well, we location scouted widely, but the producer Liz Cardenas, who we had been introduced to through the Duplass brothers and through Mel Aslan, who also produces the movie, found an Airbnb in Palm Springs, and we went to go see it. And the woman who was taking us around the Airbnb said, "Do you want to see my house, like where I live?" We're like, okay. And we went in the house, and it's exactly the house that's in 7 Days. It's full of
Oh, wow.
horses and filth. And we were like, this is like the most interesting place we've ever seen. And she was like, I've always felt this should be in a movie. We were like, yeah, we kind of get it. And then it happened to be that the reservoir was right outside that incredible house.
Mhm.
And so we asked if we could pay her to use her house and have her live in a different wing of that house, which is quite rambling and larger than it may appear, while we shot the movie there. So we ended up using the originally listed Airbnb place actually for camera crew to sleep in and for one scene,
Oh, okay. Got it.
the bathroom scene, but everything else was done there. So it was all through Airbnb. There, it was a really hard time to location scout. Like, it's really hard to like convince people to let us go take tours and look around and have enough time there to see if it was really the right place, because we were making such a high stakes decision. And
Mhm.
so we were lucky. It did not have AC. It had these units that had been bought from Home Depot that were highly ineffective. So that was the hardest part in a lot of ways.
And this is in August in Palm
This was,
Springs.
yeah, I don't know
It
how.
was like 114.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had to turn off the air conditioning for the scenes because it was
Yeah.
loud.
Those little
Right, of
So all that
course,
sweating is very real. That was not written.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, we're shooting in August. This is really kind of the very first productions are going back. I mean, films are going back into production. And just talk about kind of like, again, facing the unknown when it comes to the COVID protocols and whatnot. Regarding that, I mean, that was probably the brunt of your cost of the budget, right?
Yeah, we spent about 10%, if not a little bit more, on COVID costs. Basically, at the time, SAG was requiring all people who are in what they call Zone A, which actually encompassed the entire crew, like
Mhm.
literally every member of our 11-person total crew, including them, be tested by PCR every other day, because the results had to be available within the last 72 hours. And because of the turnaround of labs, then that meant you had to test every other day. The only labs that were willing to do that many tests on that many people with that kind of turnaround were in LA. So we had to pay the lab for a nurse to drive up to our obscure ranch and drive back in time before the lab closed every other day.
Wow.
So just a crazy process, truly crazy process. We had to prove that the ventilation in that building was appropriate, which was
Right.
hard to prove because nobody really knew.
Mhm.
So it was the COVID part of it was truly insane.
I mean, you're basically the director wearing your director's hat, but also you're a medical doctor. I mean, how would you, go between, like actually switch different hats when you're like,
Well, they wouldn't let me be the official COVID compliance officer
Right.
because I was also the director, and they were afraid that was a conflict.
Yeah.
So it was actually Ahmed Qatar who served as a PA on the movie and also as the COVID compliance officer. But I did take everyone's temperature every morning and asked for their symptoms. And
mhm.
yeah, I mean, they asked for like my medical credentials at one point, which I thought was so strange
Huh.
that SAG needed my medical credentials, but I sent them a 32-page academic resume.
Flex.
Yeah.
Yeah, simple flex. Yeah. So, I mean, how was you as a first time director, how did you basically come up with the scenes and whatnot? I mean, you were all in this one location essentially. What was your approach?
But we really did it together, and we worked with Jeremy Mackey, the cinematographer, who was amazing. He actually was the operator on Safety Not Guaranteed. That's
No, Grip.
Grip.
Key
That's
Grip,
right.
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
He was an operator on this in addition to being cinematographer. But he's been in the Duplass family. He actually later said that this was the most guerrilla film shoot he's ever been a part of. Which since he's worked with Duplass,
for all the, I mean, all
Yeah.
they're like
I'm
the
like, wow, this
they're
must
like
be.
they're like guerrilla filmmaking 101.
Yeah,
so.
and so even he was pushed to his limit, I think, by that process. But we spent a day at the location before we started shooting, where we planned every shot we would get, and then we made a shot list, and then we just never used it while we were making the movie.
Right.
So a lot of that preparation was weirdly more for, I think, our comfort and anxiety level than anything else.
So was it more free form in a way if you kind of
Yeah.
abandoned the shot list thing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
here's what you can say. It was very improvisational, I feel
Yeah.
like, in every way, from the dialogue to just the way that it was made.
How about for the actors? What was, any comments on regarding the Rashawn's directing style?
Oh my gosh, he was very prepared. He was very blunt, and he was very efficient, which is sort of what we needed. We shot like 15 pages a day,
Wow.
and we would often just do one take.
Yeah.
We had 2 cameras, and he had to sort of make the decision to be like, we really can't afford to do another one, even though it would be great. And other times make the decision to be like, we really have to do another one, even though we might not have time for the next scene or whatever it was. So it was sort of very, he was like in hospital mode. Maybe he was just making
Right.
life or death
Triage,
decisions.
triage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we shot every scene. We didn't miss a single scene, and the movie is like 80%, if not more, of the script. The final movie, like we didn't really change that much from the script, so it really, I feel like, would not have worked if we had not shot all the scenes. And there was a conversation at the end of the first day where we're like, okay, what scenes are we cutting? Like the DP was like, what scenes are we cutting? We're like, no, this is like a 95-page script. We can't cut any. We won't have a movie.
Right.
And so then I think Roshan's hardest job and that he excelled at was just that we got every single piece that was in the script, and sometimes in multiple setups and stuff. So
No, one more for safety, just for Darlene,
no
no?
safety, no
No,
safety,
no fun runs.
No fun.
I think it was really helpful that Karen and I knew each other so well, because we just had a shorthand and knew each other. Like that part felt easy. It wasn't like we have to work out the scene. Like we just knew what it was. So that was lucky.
And you guys they're just both such intuitive, good actors.
Yeah.
Like I keep thinking about what this experience would be like if it wasn't with you guys, just because it's really hard to pull off doing one take. These like complex comedy drama scenes, but they did it just time after time. So, and there's a lot of dialogue in this movie.
Yeah. Karen, did you just mention that?
You know?
Karen, you said that 80% of the script was pretty much retained.
Yeah, I
like-
would say maybe even a little bit more. We really didn't change. We didn't invent any scenes on the day or do any of that. If anything, within the scene, we would play around a little bit. Sometimes they got longer, sometimes they got shorter, or would go on some slight different tangents and stuff.
Yeah.
But it really is a and then when we were writing, Roshan was very cognizant of the fact that we just didn't want people to be bored. So when
Yeah.
we wrote the script, we really would write scenes and sort of were very meticulous when would cut things where we're like, it's funny, I guess, for a joke, but it's not going to slow the movie down too much. Like we don't want people to be bored. So then once we were done with the script, we were quite happy. I feel like we had done a lot of the work of like, well, if we shoot this, like we'll have like a story where you're laughing in the beginning, crying by the end, and you've gone on this journey. Then it just became about practically in 114 degrees and with the camera shutting down because it's overheating. How do we shoot these scenes and just get a version of the scene?
Right.
And then, maybe we can cut it together later and have a movie. Yeah.
But for the workflow, I mean, after because you were in such a breakneck speed, were you just like, you should have seen and then you reviewed it, or you just waited till the end of the day and did their dailies, looked at dailies and whatnot?
We didn't have playback. We didn't have dailies. We just, I watched at the monitor as they acted, and then we decided in that moment if we had time for another take.
Wow.
And then if it was a scene that lended itself to improvisation, like when they were drunk or the stand-up scene or something like that, then we did do multiple takes of those scenes. For any scene where we hewed more closely to the script, we did not repeat it after the first take, which made Jeremy very uncomfortable because their practice is always to get more just in
Right.
case and
Yeah.
the safety thing.
Yeah.
And obviously this is digital, but it's still like you know, and there were actual episodes with the memory card that were very terrifying, where they didn't, you know,
because of the
one of them
heat.
almost
and-
didn't. Well, they were
Yeah.
being ferried every day to LA.
Oh, got it,
With
yeah.
a PA from the Duplass office. It was always like, did the memory cards make it? Are they corrupted by heat? And
Right.
so even in the digital era, there's some fear associated with that. But yeah, that was our general approach. You know, they had to memorize like 15 pages of dialogue
Yeah,
a day.
that's crazy.
It's just really wild. So,
I mean,
we were, yeah.
Yeah, even though it's like very, you know, small shoot. I mean, Jody, you must have been exhausted. I mean, you guys must have been exhausted.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think and we were all staying together. I mean, it was fun. I don't
Yeah.
feel
It
like it
was
was
fun.
that
Yeah.
it wasn't more exhausting than other indies I've
We
done.
never
Sure.
went over 12 hours.
No.
Not a single thing.
Yeah, but it was like it was kind of like your own camp in a
It
way.
was.
Yeah.
It really
Yeah, we
was.
stayed in the same Airbnb, and I would say that it was really like fun, minus, or I think me and Roshan, like the COVID was mentally so exhausting.
Yeah.
The fear of COVID.
Right.
You would be up like so
I
early
had to get
checking
up
the
at 4
results.
a.m. to check those results and individually clear everybody before we could go. And they forgot someone. Then I had to wake up the head of the lab and be like, we can't shoot unless you can just process this result. And there's
Yeah.
just things like that. Where
I think me and Roshan, the movie finished, and we're like, oh, we could make an independent movie if it wasn't for COVID. Like, it could actually
Yeah.
be really, but I think because we also didn't have any contingency for if there was a positive, we had no budget for stopping. And the crew was, LA was just opening up for filming, and the
Yeah.
crew was going off to do big TV shows and stuff right after Labor Day, which is sort of when we finished. So we literally had no plan. Like the location, we had paid for a certain amount of time. So halfway through the shoot, we were like, do we have enough to cut together a pilot or something? Like, what if we have to stop tomorrow? So just the stress of like, what if, and then above all, you don't want anyone to fall sick. And there was still that, because people hadn't been on sets, there was still that feeling of like, is this ethical? Like, are we allowed to film? Like, it just all was so stressful that the actual filming was so fun because we were like, oh, this we know, it's familiar.
Yeah.
It's just like after that, of just like the night after, just being like, oh my gosh, the test is tomorrow. Will the nurse make it? Like, what's gonna happen?
Mhm.
Like, it was really stressful.
So you shot the movie in 8 days, and then now it's in the can. And when did Jody and Karan, when did you guys go back to work after the film?
In January, right?
Yeah, we did Miracle Wars in January, and I did like a little job in late in September. And it was, yeah, it's just so different. We both those were with Warner Brothers Television, and they literally converted the Warner Brothers parking lot in Burbank, the opposite the studio, into drive-through testing. And you would literally, like, it was like crazy, the whole operation of it all. And so it was really, you know, just done at such a high level that I was like, okay, this feels like it just is sad for independent film, because I'm like, how could you ever do this
Yeah.
on that scale? Like,
Right.
they were doing it for 25 different TV shows that were shooting in LA, but it just yeah, I hope it gets better, because I feel like independent film will be the thing that will lose out the most. It's just too expensive, and that is just if you're just testing. But then if you have a positive or anything, like, we had to stop for Miracle Workers once, and we stopped for 10 days, and I think each day is like $200,000 lost. I mean, it's crazy. And so you just go like, oh my God, like, how can you afford this for like that's like each day is like an independent movie budget. So it is, you know, kind of scary having done the independent thing and then work on a bigger thing and being like, gosh, it's a miracle. Like, any small movie is getting made in this time.
Right.
And not to bring it back, but like, that's why festivals and all this is so important, because these films have like clawed their way into existence more so than ever in the
Yeah.
last like 18 months. And they need these platforms to survive and keep being made and all of that stuff.
I see a lot of, like, you know, you see a lot of output from the pandemic, or like you know, these indie films are basically one location, obviously, like 7 days, or even like scripted podcasts. People are like, you know, just doing these essentially radio dramas, right, and whatnot. And but for like Miracle Workers, I mean, which I implore everyone to watch Miracle Workers. It's a great show, super funny. Did you pivot, because every season was always shot at different parts? I mean, different cities around the world, right? So where was the new season was shot in Oregon, or no?
in Santa Clarita.
Santa Clarita.
Yeah.
Well, there's a pivot. Was that a pivot because?
We got the California tax incentive.
Oh, okay, okay.
So
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
they would have not wanted to shoot in California because the COVID was so bad. When we started,
Oh.
we started January
scary.
2021. It was 15,000 cases a day in
Right.
LA.
Yeah.
So I think we were all like, "What?"
Yeah.
And I think they would have not wanted to shoot there. But yeah, it only shot there because we were gonna lose the lottery thing.
Got it.
if
Right,
they
right.
hadn't shot it. Yeah.
No, I mean, because I was going to Dodger Stadium like every 2 weeks just get tested.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Mm.
crazy. Talk about like the kind of post production process, like
Yeah, when you have a movie that's just one take for most scenes,
Yeah.
not that complicated in a lot of ways. But Stephanie Kaznocha did a full edit of the movie within 2 weeks because we
Wow.
were trying to make the Sundance deadline at the
Right.
time. And then we made what were honestly very tiny adjustments to her edit. She's extremely gifted and just so good at her job. And then after those tiny adjustments, we scored it with Amanda Jones, who's incredible. And now I feel like is too famous to do this kind of project. She's really, her star has risen so far, which was almost true at the time too. And then we did the rest of post in a kind of hectic rush before January, and then we premiered at Tribeca, so we ended up having a lot more time than we realized. But the post part financially was actually the biggest part in a weird way, because for physical production, a lot of the equipment, if we're putting aside COVID, a lot of the equipment had been donated to us. We were fortunate enough. Our total camera package was $5,000 because we were given an Alexa Mini,
Wow.
like really fancy
Yeah.
equipment, and a Canon camera package as well. And that they were all so eager to support filmmakers who were making anything during that time,
Mhm.
and especially because we were considered diverse, that was another part of it. So
So, and then obviously post production was all done remotely, right? So, like,
the editing was all done remotely, the coloring was done in person, and then the score, the sound design, the sound mix, for the final sound mix, we did go in person as well.
okay.
But things were starting to change. I can't remember. I mean, we were pre-vaccines for all of that. I got the vaccine a bit early as a doctor, but yeah.
And then, so let's talk about the Tribeca premiere. I mean, you actually bought more time to work on it and whatnot, because that was in June,
June,
Yeah.
June 10th. Yeah.
and that was in person, right? That was an in-person screening.
Yeah, it was a hybrid. They called it hybrid, and it truly was, where they did have people who were in person, mostly New York residents.
Mhm.
It wasn't the former thing of people flying in for the film
Yeah, yeah,
festival,
yeah.
the agents and the industry
Right,
people
right,
and
right.
the programs. It wasn't like that, but there were people who were in person, and then it was streamed virtually for that same duration of time.
Got it.
Um,
I mean, just for us, like for our audiences, this is our first time in 18 months going to the theater.
yeah.
So, like, talk about kind of that premiere for you at Tribeca.
Well, it was outdoors, and it was
Yeah.
an LED screen, not
Oh,
a projector.
okay.
Which made some things better in terms of being washed out by the sun. But we premiered at 6 p.m., so the sun had not set during the
Oh.
process.
It was a summer,
And it was, before
later-
equinox. It was
yeah.
it was like the sun was on the screen
oh.
for parts of it, which was inevitable, or which was unavoidable, sorry, because of the way that that venue was designed.
Right.
But the thing that made me cringe the most was just the night scenes, because there's quite a few night scenes and they're critical, but you couldn't see parts of them, I thought. But
Right.
it always feels worse to you. And I know Jeremy said the cinematographer said he was close to crying watching it on this LED screen. But it was cool to see the movie with other people. I don't know,
Yeah.
in your mind, though. Like we were all laughing, and it was crazy.
I mean, filmmakers are always very critical, and like they don't want to see it. I get it. I totally get it. But how for the actors? How was that going to a premiere? And I mean, some semblance of normalcy, even though it was outdoors. And
Yeah, it was really weird. I really appreciate. It was really weird. Yeah, it just felt like it was like such a bittersweet thing. I think really appreciated that it wasn't all virtual, because that I didn't experience, but
Yeah.
feels like I know people who premiered at Sundance 2020, and they sort of were like, it just felt like nothing happened, and it was bizarre. But so I did appreciate that, but at the same time, it also felt like so much different from like a regular festival of seeing a movie in a movie theater.
Yeah.
It really we really sort of missed that. But then we've gotten to have it after that. We were at BFI London,
Right.
and we got to watch the movie with 300 people
Right.
one night, and so that really was a reminder too of like, oh yeah, like that's what we were sort of missing and feeling. Like I just don't think all movies are meant to play outdoors in New York, where there's like ambulances and people yelling and screaming,
Yeah.
and you're just
It was
like,
in a
well,
park.
yeah, it was in a park, and
Yeah.
but I really appreciated them trying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The festival. It's like everyone's had to be so innovative and stuff, and I definitely am hopeful that we can go back to more of the original version of that, and
Right.
less of the outdoor.
Jordan, did you see it in the theater yet? Or
No, have I?
No, you haven't seen it in a theater.
only seen it at Tribeca?
Right, and I was backstage eating Chipotle. So I haven't seen it on the big screen yet. Damn,
Yeah.
that's a bummer. I've seen it, on my TV at home.
Mhm.
But
When it comes out.
Yeah. We'll go into that really quick. But okay, so let's talk about the the BFI London Film Festival screening. Is it a proper theater?
Yeah, they screened it
Yeah.
3 times at 3 different theaters. One is the Prince Charles, which is historic, and then the Odeon, and then another one, which I forget. And it was like sold out screenings, hundreds of people, literally hundreds.
Yeah.
And then England has a huge Indian population.
Oh, yeah.
because
Yeah.
they were kind of reverse colonized England, and they've which is so funny.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
so funny because it's just karma. It's
I mean,
what they
the
deserve.
original. I mean, the official British cuisine is
is curry.
curry. Yeah.
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 Yeah, no, we just came right back at them,
Yeah.
and we're there, and they all came to the movie, and that was really fun, and it was just like people were laughing in the theater. It was like so different.
Yeah, and like London is like there's no rules anymore.
Yeah.
COVID is over.
Yeah, it is really there's no masks, there's no one has asked you for a vaccine if you have proof of it, like nothing, and people are just going wild. So it was really bizarre because it really felt like it was pre-COVID because we were in this 300 person theater. I mean, we had our mask on and stuff, but no one had it on. I mean, it was just, and people were just all there and comfortable, and it was nice and also scary at the same time. But yeah, that was really sort of special.
Dr. Sadie, what do you think of that?
Well, I think that I understand the impulse and the desire to
Mhm.
rip off these masks
Yeah.
and be normal again. Our movie actually even touches on it.
Right.
It's just a super tough thing because I think Delta has maybe a new variant, the Delta Plus thing, which is potentially more infectious, more prevalent in the UK. Their case rate was rising, their positivity rate was rising, and despite all of that, you would be on the tube with so many people, the majority of whom weren't wearing masks. So it was very terrifying. Also, the vaccination in that country is by and large AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson.
Yeah.
So presumably less effective than the mRNA. So, and the boosters are out for healthcare workers and over 60, but not for the general population. So the whole thing made me nervous.
But you had a good screening. Great screening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Great
I
screening.
forgot all of that during the screening. I was like, whatever.
Just a reminder, we can get questions from the audience. Just go ahead and put your questions in the comments. Oh, great. In Facebook Live, you're watching on Facebook Live or YouTube. So we actually have a question from Paul. As a doctor, are you automatically a scientist when trying stuff as a filmmaker, or do you allow trying stuff like a jazz musician when being an artist? Oh, interesting.
Yeah, actually, that's such an interesting question because when I do science, I'm very neurotic and OCD and frankly just anxious, and I'm always afraid that I'm like not taking care of my patients or not doing a good job. And then in any creative space with like writing, it's just like whatever. I just feel so loose and free, and I'm not OCD at all. I never second guess anything. I'm not frankly meticulous.
Right.
It's just the complete opposite. So it's nice to. I feel like art shouldn't be like science.
Right.
Good question.
Oh, another question from Paul. What was your best lesson for this project? Not anything to do with COVID. Or your best lesson as a director for yourself, not others. Okay.
I just think we all learned how much we did this together. Like it was like a really interesting thing to like make a movie in this like small experimental way where we just like all realized what we all had to bring. And to be completely honest, I come from writing and I was not fully aware of what actors do, I feel like, until this movie. So I really learned a lot
Right.
about that.
Because you're established screenwriter. You created the hit show, The
Yeah.
Resident, and I guess it was just working a different part of your brain to. I mean, this is your directorial debut, right? So
Yeah, when you're writing on your own in a theoretical way, it's so different. And then seeing it brought to life and how much the words actually don't matter, it's really
Right.
interesting.
right. Let's see. Karen, I'm talking about you said your mentor is Mark Duplass,
Yeah.
the Duplass Brothers, and Safety Not Guaranteed. I think you also directed an episode of Room 104.
Yeah.
What lessons have you learned from Duplass aside from guerrilla filmmaking and making it all work?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I basically just the biggest thing I think I've learned just absorbed from them is how limitations can be very creative. And they sort of, I think, thrive on that, where they don't often have a lot of the bells and whistles of bigger Hollywood things. And in a lot of cases, unless you're making a big action movie or something, it doesn't really matter. And they've sort of thrived in sort of, just making stuff quickly and without getting too many bigger higher ups to say yes to things. I learned that the most on Room 104, which I feel like was, again, very contained, like everything takes place in that room.
Yeah.
And they told stories from like horror to comedy to
Mhm.
like supernatural, every genre in that same set. And you could redress the set how you want, but it was the same four walls.
Right.
And I got to act in one season and then direct in another season, and they were just completely different. And that to me was just they churned out 4 seasons out of one room. And so it was helpful when we were thinking of our movie too, of just being like, gosh, like, how can we take advantage of all these limitations? And I think they're just masters of that. They keep doing it over and over again, and it's a very hard thing
Yeah.
to do.
I mean, it's their own like cottage industry in a way. They're really good, and like in a way. I mean, not only writing and directing, but also acting as well. So they're in a lot of stuff. So, we have a question for Geraldine. I love your facial expressions when you act. Do you do any improv study when you were younger? Oh, perfect, because this is very improv Hawaii. This is the home of improv Hawaii. So
Really?
yeah, this stage, Tiny Stage Hawaii. They do a lot of improv classes in here and stuff like that.
Oh,
so,
cute.
cool.
and
Oh
self
my
tapes.
gosh. Oh, that's cool.
I agree with that. You do make great facial expressions.
I really can't hide how I feel. Like, I'm a terrible liar. My face is like so telling. So yeah, I'm glad that I'm doing this where that helps. But yeah, I did a bit of improv. I did like UCB 101 when I first went to LA, but I think I mostly did like stand up and sketch comedy in Sydney. I had a sketch group called Freudian Nip, and we still work together. Love those guys. So yeah, I think that's probably where it's fun to get to do like the big expressive, like sketchy stuff. And then sort of try to bring it all back when you're on screen, which clearly I'm not doing that well. But yeah, a little bit of mostly sketch.
Is there like I would say, cultural difference between Australia and the US? Because you're at UCB in LA, and then also doing stuff in Australia.
Yeah, I feel like comedy is definitely really different in Australia. It feels a lot drier and like more just specific. I feel like Australian comedy very rarely is funny in America. Very few things break through. Like Chris Lilly and is an example of something that has, and I don't know, I think
Yahoo Serious? No, I'm just kidding.
which one?
Yahoo Serious? Do you know who that is? Or
No.
you're very young. Sorry.
Is that Australian?
Yeah, he's a comedian. Back
Shame-
from the
shame on
late
me.
80s. That's great.
Oh,
Oh, Liz asks for Geraldine and Karan. I know you both come from a comedy background. Were any aspects of the final film improvised? Were there any elements of the final film that were initially written in the script? So let's talk about that.
yeah.
Is it 80% like on a kind of like ratio? So 80% of the script was retained. What were some key scenes that were improvised?
Yeah, I think where we drink was I had real alcohol for that scene.
He had one drink.
I had one drink, but boy
Were you
oh boy,
lightweight?
I'm a very
Yes.
lightweight. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd also done like I've been traumatized because I'd done like one scene where I had to be really drunk on my first sort of series regular thing I had done. This show called Betas for Amazon, and it was not good. It was not believable, and the director really was like that. This is not working. Like he just kept saying that, and there was like 100 extras in the scene, and I'm like on
Oh my
a stage singing karaoke,
Oh,
drunk, but
yeah,
like
yeah.
it just wasn't working.
But
And
were you drinking like tea or something? Or
I know, yeah, it was like I can't remember,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
whatever, but I was completely sober, and it just didn't. It was bad, and so I've always sort of been like haunted by that. And then weirdly, when we were writing this, I was like, we it was a great idea. I think that we both were like, wouldn't it be funny if they like drink or do something like that? And then I was just like, yes, and I must like challenge myself to like many years later like figure it out. And then I was like thinking about it as we were prepping, like, and then I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna drink, like, why not? And so I did a little bit of that, and then once I got loose, it's like we were just like, let's just capture whatever this is.
No.
Yeah.
that was improvised. That's my favorite thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just more of those scenes, I think. Where
yeah. I mean, more loosey goosey. Were you a sloppy drunk? I mean, did you, as a director, had to rein people in?
Well, no. Well, I also am Current's boyfriend, so
Yeah.
I had seen him drunk before too. But
Right.
he's never
But-
a sloppy drunk.
But on
Yeah.
set, I mean, when you're like,
Because it was just
time
so
is crucial, and
funny.
yeah.
He was completely in command of himself,
Okay.
despite being completely loose. At the
That's
same
very sweet
time.
to say. Yeah.
Yeah, but he was it was just all very funny, and you were very loose during that scene too, I think, and it was just there's a lot going on.
Yeah, that dancing sequence was really fun because it was just like, yeah, go for it. I was like riding him at one point.
Yeah,
that was
He
really
was like
crazy.
dragging. I was dragging you along the floor.
And there was
Stuff
just
was really
Eduardo,
fun.
the camera operator,
Yeah,
following you guys as you did crazy things. And that dance sequence was really cool because the Jeremy and the gaffer Camillo just rigged the room with this crazy lighting arrangement, and then we just hit a Bollywood playlist, and then we just shot 6 minutes of them doing whatever,
Right.
with the room, with Camillo just doing random things with the light and them dancing, and such a funny and memorable way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's really fun.
We have another question from Jen May. Karen, will you be doing more stuff behind the camera?
Ooh, yes, I really want to. I really do. I think really making this like and watching Roshan sort of direct and sort of being, I've never been part of like a movie from the inception like this before. Like I joined it to go along on location scouts and was present for the edit and all of that stuff. And I really do want to try to direct a film too. Like I would really like that. I think, and especially after making this and then being on set ever since I've made this, I observe other directors like with like a razor sharp eye, and I'm always like, what would I do and all that stuff. So I'm really excited to definitely do that one day, hopefully soon. But
Geraldine, how about you?
Behind the camera?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Eventually. I definitely want to write, and then directing. I've always felt like I'm too indecisive. I get really scared making decisions, but maybe I've been told it might help me with that to
Right.
force me to do it. So yeah, I'd love to do it all one day.
The question was actually another question was Mark Duplass model of indie filmmaking. I mean, you already talked about it 5 minutes ago, so but really quickly, I mean, again, if you want to just reiterate, Karan, like working with Mark Duplass,
oh my gosh, yeah, they just make things, they just like get things,
just make
made.
things happen,
Yeah,
right?
make things happen. And they're very equitable actually with the crew. So like there's all the actors and the crew, we all made the same money, like the same day rate, and every crew member got back end points on
Okay.
the project, and they sort of, from my understanding, do that for almost all their things, where they know that like the actual shoot is not glamorous.
Right.
Like we don't have trailers, we don't have any of that stuff you would have in bigger Hollywood things. But everyone, I think it creates the sense that everyone is literally has an ownership stake in the project. And on almost all their movies, the crew sees some money after the film
Right.
is sold. And so I think it was especially interesting to think about all that now when all the IATSE crew stuff is happening.
Yeah.
Obviously it's hard, I think, to do that model with like huge crews and everything, but they've definitely figured out like a very sort of way where everyone, I think, feels like equal and respected. And that's why their crews like are always, I think they use the sort of same crews, because once you're in that world, people like working in it, I think.
Yeah, workers' rights. We all believe in that. So, so maybe for the film, like you talked, Roshan, you talked about diversity and all that stuff. The fact that the cast is South Asian, and can you comment on kind of bringing that, I don't know, authenticity to something that would be, I mean, a universal story in a way, but having that kind of cultural kind of like specific to specificity to your story.
Yeah, our approach was always just to make it extremely specific and then never explain any of it to
Mhm.
anyone else, and just immerse the audience in it because we knew they would figure it out anyways. We also felt like the specificity gave something specific to this project because there's such rom-com fatigue and you've seen
Mhm.
the story so many times. And what we were interested in was arranged marriage, which is some
Right.
would consider the opposite of the rom-com
Right.
because the people, they fall in love after they get married.
Yeah.
So we were really interested in finding a story that sort of reflected that ethos. Both of us are the children of arranged marriages.
Mm.
My parents met 7 days before they got married, and many of our relatives have a similar story. And the thing that interested me the most from a cultural standpoint is that Indians and many other Eastern cultures truly believe that love is something practical that you build together after you get married, in complete opposition to the Western conception of love, which is that you get struck by it like a thunderbolt. Love happens to you with the one person who is perfectly compatible with you. It's so heightened and fanciful, and it's the fairy tale feeling of it is not present in the very practical workaday approach that Indians
Right.
have. So we were interested in that sort of specific cultural divide because our parents who have arranged marriages are watching us in our generation find each other in ways
Mhm.
that they don't understand because they just did what their parents told them at
Right.
23. My
Right.
mom flew from Amritsar, Punjab to London to marry a man she'd never met.
So hot.
She'd been given a little postage stamp sized picture of him, and then all her relatives just stood over her and they were like, "So, is that a yes?" She's like, "Okay." And she flew there to marry him.
He's got a great mustache or something.
Yeah, he did have a mustache.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any more stories, projects like that you think will come from this partnership? Well, life partnership, but like any
Yeah.
other, yeah,
From our throuple.
yeah,
Yes,
throuple,
please.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's a thing now. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
It's
always been a
real.
thing, I guess, but yeah,
I've weaseled my way
much
in.
more open. Yeah.
Well, the one thing we talked about doing is the gay rom-com, which
That'd be great.
We'll continue working on, hopefully. And doing
Yeah,
some-
we've written like a few scripts already now since we've done this, and they're all more ambitious than this one, just financially.
Mm-hmm.
Not like by huge amounts, but pretty okay, substantial amounts.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of like in the Hollywood way of things, like which one we can get money for to make next.
Yeah.
I mean, 7 Days is very guerrilla indie, but like, you don't see, I mean, that's not true because Joe, you're in a lot of rom-coms, but like, you don't see rom-coms really kind of in the mainstream, like at least theatrically released, right? So it's just, because everything's all about Marvel and
people
Disney
have-
and
Yeah, I think they're going to be really tough prospects for theatrical distribution
Yeah.
going forward. But the people believe there's a resurgence of them because of the streamers.
Yeah.
So we'll see how those things go. I think the theater stuff that goes to theaters will increasingly be things that have the quality of spectacle,
Mhm.
like Marvel and like the big action movies and all of those things. It's too bad because comedies are really meant to be a communal experience.
absolutely.
Because biologically, medically, the only reason we laugh is to promote bonding in a tribe. So if you're laughing on your own at a computer screen, the whole thing just doesn't make sense. It's unnatural. But we're meant to laugh together, in the dark or not. And but now comedies have stopped being released theatrically, so something really sad is happening that isn't right. But I don't know if that any of what I just said will matter.
Wow. That kind of blew me
I'm
away.
rocked. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm shook. But
Straight shook.
I mean, like, as like, just for everyone, what other genres do you want to explore?
We talked about yeah, we've
Oh,
written
tell
like
me
a
about the horror.
sort of horror script.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's sort of more horror, like in the vein of Get Out or something, where there's
Okay.
comedy in it.
Yeah.
It's not like jump scares. That's one of the many ones, or we're hoping to maybe get money for that one. But yeah,
Yeah, and then you're interested in running your own thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I think all of them. Action, and animation. I
Mm.
really want to do.
Yeah, you'd be so good for animation. Like
I
a
have an
horse
idea.
thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What's the horse thing?
I don't know.
No,
I don't
just
know.
'cause you like.
Oh, just I'm a horse girl, so
Oh, okay.
that makes sense.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Not HOARC, but the horse, like an animal, horse girl,
Yeah.
horse person. Yeah,
Yes. I'm like, what's the other thing?
yeah. But I mean, again, a lot of great facial expressions. So you be maybe maybe a mocap. Of,
Yeah. Oh
the-
yeah, like
the,
Andy Circus
yeah,
style.
like Andy Circus style.
I
Exactly.
am the horse.
There you go.
There we go.
Rise
Yeah.
of the Planet of the
Expressive
Horses.
horse.
Is there any other questions from the audience? Please post them in the comments section. Okay, no, I think we are almost done. Like, how was your experience in Hawaii so far?
Oh my gosh. Dreamy.
Oh my gosh, it's so special.
Never leave
It feels like you're not in America, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone is so friendly. It's so naturally beautiful.
But there's an urbanity too. I mean, there's an urban like we talked. I mean,
Yeah.
like, Karan, you talked about because you visited Fiji, right?
Yeah, I filmed something in Fiji. It also feels a lot like India,
Yeah.
like the apartment buildings.
Sure.
I just didn't realize how old they are.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, it's a little bit jarring because you're like, oh, and then you're just like, this is kind of so like
60s, 70s.
kind of beautiful because
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just like more analog. Everything
right,
feels
right,
like a little
right.
bit more analog. Yeah, I think we were discussing this last night too, but there feels like this general sense of like everyone in a group mentality agrees that this is a special place
Mm.
and that it has to be respected.
Yeah.
Even just the COVID of it all, like we're coming from LA and California, which is quote unquote pretty strict,
Right.
but to come here and see how willingly people are showing their vaccine card
yeah.
and respecting that, like that just started in LA the week we left,
Yes.
and that you have to show that. And we were asking someone in a shop, like, are people doing it? And they were like, oh my gosh, it's horrible, like because some people are and some people are really fighting it, and there's just
Right.
like this, just that conflict that is existing in our society. But something about this place does feel very special, where like everyone who's coming seems to respect it, which is really kind of magical.
I mean, not to have it all go back to India, but like you were shooting a movie in Fiji, but did you, because there's a big Indian population in Fiji. Did you?
Oh my God, I was shocked. Yeah. Everywhere I go, my mom's like, there's a lot of Indians there. And I was like, okay. And then Fiji, she was like, there's a lot of Indians there. I was like, Mom, there's not a lot of Indians there. And they are.
Yeah.
And they have like island accents,
Yeah.
which is really weird.
Yeah. And there's like a
Um,
great Fijian Indian cuisine too.
Yeah.
Very unique, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's, Fiji. Yeah. It was pretty wacky and wild. I liked it.
Right.
Yeah.
How about your experience here in Hawaii?
Yeah, it's sort of a lot of the same. There's just such a level of kindness and respect here that is frankly unfamiliar in America, in mainland America.
Yeah. It's so easy to
The
get.
most striking thing. It's
Yeah.
just there's
Yeah.
such a baseline level of kindness, respect, and community that
Yeah, it's
it reminds
really,
me a lot of Canada.
really easy to get laid.
Yes.
Yes.
Just get laid every day. Sometimes multiple times a day I'm getting laid.
Getting laid right now.
Getting laid live.
Geraldine, like any? It's your first time. Here, right?
I just got in yesterday, and I
okay.
was, but I mean, stunning, and reminds me. And obviously, imagine I have a hot take.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
hate it here. But I was talking to the guy who drove me to the hotel. He like grew up here, and I was like, what's the downside of growing up here? It just seems like perfect paradise. And he was like, yeah, it's hard leaving and like going into the real world. I just thought that was amazing. That's like the worst part of growing up somewhere, leaving. But yeah, I want to live here, so
Nice.
let me know
All right.
if anyone has a house
shoot a
for
film in
me.
Hawaii too. Yeah.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so what are the final questions? Like the 7 days is going to the festival circuit. How can people see the film outside the festivals?
Yeah, so we just signed with a distributor, Cinedigm, so it'll come out domestically in early next year, 2022, with a theatrical platform release followed by PVOD, etc.
Oh, great.
And then eventually likely be licensed by one of the streamers, though the details of that haven't been.
Right.
figured out.
Is there an official website for the film?
No, not to my knowledge.
Instagram
Is
or?
there an Instagram?
There's no Instagram. We haven't done that
Guys!
thing yet.
It's
We haven't
messed
done- I know you're supposed to make the Instagram page and then the Twitter page, and you're supposed to tweet every festival. We haven't done that.
Tumblr?
I know.
No.
The social media part of it is just like it's so exhausting.
Yeah,
We should make a
it is.
TikTok.
Yeah.
We should make it. But there, that song, the Bollywood song that's in the movie, is an original.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was because we tried to license Chula Ki Giovanni, which is our favorite Bollywood song,
Mhm.
and the cost of the song was more than the budget of the movie.
Oh, wow,
That's
yeah,
how much
yeah.
it cost to buy. I was like, nobody licenses this song. It's just a Bollywood song, and they were like, that'll be $150,000. That's crazy for 3 minutes.
Wow.
But anyways, yeah. So we're planning to make a TikTok video.
Okay.
using that song.
Oh, that's
Oh,
great.
really?
That's great.
Well, we should all just, well, not me, but you guys, talent people.
Oh
just
my
do
gosh.
something.
Can't wait for that.
Yeah, I can't wait for that
Yeah,
either.
I've been practicing.
Yeah, Daisy Spider-Man.
So 7 Days comes out early 2022
Yes.
by being released by Cinedigm. They have a platform theatrical release, and then eventually PVOD, and then the streamers, on one of the major streamers and whatnot. So
licensing.
yeah. Okay, so thank you very much, 7 Days team.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
for having us.
Thank you to the Vilcek Foundation for partnering with us for the NAP program. And yeah, we're not done yet. This is the 14th. Tomorrow is our end of the in-person screenings on Oahu, but we are doing in-person screenings on the neighbor islands of Maui, Kauai, and the Big Island next weekend. And we also have an XR showcase, which is all free at the Entrepreneur Sandbox next weekend as well. And we're also, as a hybrid festival, also online streaming on our streaming platform at watch.hif.org. All that information is all on our website at hif.org. So thank you again for being a part of this virtual panel, and we'll see you very soon. Thank you.